The crime that shattered a family in 1976 inches the early days of January 1976, a calm winter's night in Gulfport, Mississippi, would give way to tragedy. Richard Gerald Jordan, a 29-year-old shipyard worker and Vietnam War veteran, placed a call to Gulf National Bank. Pretending to do business, he requested to speak with Charles Chuck Martyr, a loan officer. What followed would spiral into a nightmare. Jordan, having noted Martyr's address in the phone book, ambushed his home. He abducted Martyr's wife, 35-year-old Edwina Martyr, a mother of two, through brute force. What started as an extortion scheme quickly escalated. Jordan carried Edwina into DeSoto National Forest and, in a chilling betrayal of trust, fatally shot her with a .38 caliber pistol. In a macabre call following the murder, Jordan contacted Charles and demanded $25,000 ransom, claiming Edwina was safe. But the brutal truth soon emerged when investigators found Edwina's body, camouflaged among forest underbrush, shot dead. Arrest, confession, and conviction. Arrested the next day while collecting the ransom, Jordan quickly confessed. In court, he led the authorities to Edwina's burial site, confirming his guilt. The confession and forensic links left little doubt. Over the ensuing months, Jordan faced trial. The prosecution painted him as cold and calculating. His defense remained largely silent on his wartime trauma. Still, the evidence sealed his fate. In 1976, Jordan was convicted of kidnapping and capital murder and sentenced to death, ushering in a cycle of appeals that would stretch nearly half a century. Legal battles. For trials, endless appeals. First death sentence overturned. Jordan's first death sentence was vacated in light of new U.S. Supreme Court rulings declaring mandatory death sentencing unconstitutional. This triggered a second capital trial. Second sentence struck down following the second trial. Jordan's sentencing was again overturned. His defense argued procedural flaws, but details remained muddled in dense legal arguments. Plea agreement gone awry. Facing a third trial, prosecutors offered Jordan a deal: plead guilty, accept life without parole, and forego appeals. Initially, Jordan agreed. However, lawyers later challenged the plea, stating that life without parole wasn't even permissible in Mississippi at the time of the crime. Courts agreed the deal was invalid. Fourth trial and final death sentence in 1998. Jordan faced his fourth trial and was again sentenced to death. By then, he had exhausted all major avenues for clemency and appeal. Years of legal scrutiny involved claims by his attorney, Chrissy Nobile, that Jordan had been denied a fair trial due to a lack of adequate mental health representation, particularly a specialist independent of any prosecutorial interest. PTSD, a haunted soldier's mind. Jordan's defense years later highlighted his service in Vietnam, 3 tours back-to-back, and the severe post-traumatic stress disorder that likely haunted him. His team contended that if a jury had received this context, an independent psychiatric evaluation, battlefield trauma, it could have altered the sentencing process. Professionals like Franklin Rosenblatt of the National Institute of Military Justice underscored the evolving understanding of how war trauma affects cognition and behavior. Jordan's appeals argued that these insights should have played a central role in his defense, yet victims' family members rejected it as an excuse. Eric Martyr, Edwina's eldest son, recalled, "I know what he did. He wanted money, did what he did," emphasizing that trauma does not justify murder. Execution date set. Final appeals denied by late 2024. With appeals concluded and pleas dismissed, Mississippi Attorney General Lynn Fitch requested an execution date. In May 2025, the state Supreme Court scheduled Jordan's execution for June 25, 2025. Late motions included a challenge to the execution protocol, Mississippi's 3-drug lethal injection. Jordan's team argued it caused extreme pain and violated 8th Amendment protections. But in April, a federal judge upheld use of midazolam, a sedative central to the protocol. The U.S. Supreme Court denied Jordan's final appeal on June 23, 2 days before his execution. Jordan also petitioned Governor Tate Reeves for clemency based on his PTSD and trial fairness issues. The governor denied the request, ending Jordan's last hope. The final hours at Parchman on June 25, 2025, Mississippi State Penitentiary, Parchman, readied for Jordan's final act day. Last meal and company days before, Jordan requested a final meal: chicken tenders, fries, strawberry ice cream, and a root beer float. He was allowed visits with his wife, Marcia, his attorney Chrissy Nobile, and Father Tim Murphy, his spiritual counselor-to-be. Witnesses in the Chamber 7 media witnesses, a corrections superintendent, and Marcia, Nobile, and Murphy were present. Edwina's family did not attend, but her nephew Keith read an emotional statement outside. Final statement at 6:02 p.m. The execution began. Jordan, strapped to the gurney, turned to address those present. First, I'd like to thank everyone for a humane way of doing this. I want to apologize to the victim's family. Thank you to my lawyers and to my wife. I love you very much. I will see you on the other side, all of you. He then lay silent for 14 minutes. At 6:16 p.m., the attending doctor pronounced him death. Family of the victim speaks outside the prison walls. Keith DeGruy read Edwina's family's collective message. Nothing will bring back our mom. Nothing can ever change what Jordan took from us 49 years ago. We feel that he should have to endure the suffering of knowing his death was only hours away, just like Edwina had to endure. Jordan changed the lives of our family. She will forever be missed. Sheriff Matt Haley echoed that sentiment. Let's not lose sight of who the victim is here. There is only one victim here. Her name was Edwina Martyr. The family celebrated justice, tempered by sadness that an apology could never heal their loss to Mississippi's death penalty landscape. Jordan's execution was only the third in Mississippi in the past decade. The previous lethal injection took place in December 2022. Across the U.S., 25 executions were carried out by late June 2025, matching 2018's peak and marking the most since 2015. Nationally, states like Florida and Texas have higher execution rates. At the same time, several states, Ohio notably, had paused executions due to drug procurement issues. Methods and controversies. Mississippi's 3-drug protocol, typically involving an anesthetic like midazolam followed by paralytic and heart-stopping agents, faces lawsuits alleging Eighth Amendment violations. Jordan joined these legal efforts, although they ultimately failed. Role of trauma. Jordan's case brought PTSD into capital sentencing discussions. Defense attorneys argued general ignorance in 1976 about trauma's effects compared to current understanding, which recognizes how such conditions affect behavior and culpability, ethical, legal, and social reckonings. Justice versus rehabilitation. Jordan's case rekindled debates over capital punishment's role. Is justice served through death, or could decades in prison suffice? To many, the answer was clear. No form of punishment could ever remedy a grieving family's pain. To others, the inhumanity of long-deferred executions raised urgent questions that Mississippi's approach was challenged by advocates and activists. Death penalty action held a vigil at Parchment, appealing for life sentences instead. War, trauma, and accountability. Jordan's PTSD defense prompted broader reflection. How should society account for trauma in violent crime sentencing? Would a jury informed of his wartime suffering have shown leniency? Or did the premeditated nature of his crime eclipse such context? His military background drew contrasting views, a moral echo of a nation's duty to veterans versus individual responsibility. For prosecutors and the Martyr family, wartime service was no excuse. For his lawyers, it marked a crucial lens to understand the man's broken mind at sea. Delay of justice. Finally, the tortuous 49-year journey to death blurred definitions of justice. Was the execution after nearly half a century a triumph or a farcical delay? The family saw closure. Opponents highlighted how protracted appeals turned death sentences into drawn-out suffering for all involved. Legacy and implications. Military veterans and PTSD. Jordan's case amplifies demands for systemic reform in criminal justice to account for trauma-related mental illness. Death penalty debates. His lengthy time on death row adds to critiques of capital punishment's cost, delay, and limited deterrence. Execution methods scrutinized. Continued legal challenges to midazolam and 3-drug usage could prompt protocol revisions or moratoriums. Family versus perpetrator narratives. The clash between trauma claims and demand for justice illustrates deep societal divisions over empathy versus retribution. concluding thoughts. The case of Richard Gerald Jordan is a multifaceted narrative steeped in violence, remorse, trauma, legal strategy, and conflict over moral clarity. It raises haunting questions. Can decades of remorse or trauma atone for a brutal, calculated crime? Does an execution that takes nearly 50 years, complicated by legal challenges, offer justice? Or cruel mockery? Must trauma always be mitigated, or do victims' families deserve clarity and resolution without excuse? Jordan's final words, thanking those who included his loved ones and acknowledging Edwina's family, echo both forgiveness and uncertainty. The lasting imprint of her death remains.
What did you think of the case? Please share your thoughts in the comment below. If you want more video like this, please be sure to like the video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on more true crime videos. See you in the next one.